Angela Levin sparks Prince Harry affair speculation and Meghan faces fresh scrutiny. Hold on to your seats, because the gilded doors of Montecito just took a battering ram to the face, and the royal storybook is officially catching fire. Just when you thought the Sussexes had trademarked every possible flavor of public victimhood, veteran royal biographer Angela Levin went live and dropped an absolute nuclear bomb on Prince Harry's past. We aren't just talking about another petty rift over seating arrangements or who made who cry over flower girl dresses. No, we are talking about explosive, jaw-dropping claims of secret infidelity, shattered trust, and a series of covert affairs that threatened to tear the entire rescue narrative down to its foundation. For years, Meghan Markle sold the world a very specific, ultra-polished fairy tale. That she swept in, saved a trapped prince, and showed him what true love looks like. But what if that entire story is built on a massive, convenient illusion? What if the man who claims he was completely unseen and helpless was actually busy destroying the most genuine relationship of his young adult life behind closed doors? Angela Levin, the biographer who spent endless hours sitting face-to-face with Harry, has finally reached her absolute breaking point. She isn't just dropping subtle hints anymore. She's exposing a pattern that raises the ultimate, terrifying question for Montecito's PR team. Did Meghan actually know who she was marrying, or was she handed a fairy tale script written over a mountain of buried secrets? Put down your coffee, smash that subscribe button, and buckle up, because we are diving straight into the scandal that has the entire internet completely unhinged. If you thought the royal drama had finally peaked, you need to recalibrate, because what is unfolding right now makes every previous Sussex scandal look like a mild misunderstanding at a garden party. Let us get straight to the heart of this unfolding catastrophe, and look at the key players who have suddenly found themselves locked in a public relations war zone. On one side, you have Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, the self-proclaimed champions of authenticity, mental health awareness, and modern empowerment. On the other side, you have Angela Levin, a seasoned, highly respected biographer who was once given unprecedented, intimate access to the Duke of Sussex long before California, long before Netflix, and long before the tragic unraveling of his relationship with the British public. For years, the global public has been conditioned to accept a very specific storyline. We were told that Harry was a deeply traumatized, neglected young prince floating aimlessly through life until an extraordinarily perceptive American actress stepped onto the scene and pulled him out of the darkness. It was a narrative that sold millions of books, generated massive streaming deals, and formed the literal foundation of the Sussex global brand. But that entire carefully engineered empire relies on one massive assumption: that Harry was an innocent, helpless victim waiting to be rescued. Enter Angela Levin, who has essentially taken a sledgehammer to that pristine image. Levin did not just observe Harry from the sidelines. She sat across from him in unguarded, private moments, watching him navigate his life when the cameras were off. And what she is putting on the record now is nothing short of devastating. She is pointing directly to Harry's long-term relationship with Chelsy Davy, the brilliant, fiercely independent Zimbabwean-born businesswoman who loved Harry for who he actually was, long before the world knew him as a runaway royal. Chelsy was not interested in titles, red carpet invitations, or access to palace vaults. She was a self-made creative, a woman who built her own jewelry brand with her own hands and asked for nothing from Harry except basic honesty and personal integrity. But according to Levin's damning assessment, while Chelsy was away at university, working hard and building a future, Harry was engaged in a series of shocking, unfaithful betrayals behind closed doors. He was not a helpless victim of an oppressive royal system. He was actively destroying the most genuine, grounding romantic connection of his adult life through reckless, selfish choices. When Chelsy discovered the truth about his secret affairs, she did not call a press conference, she did not pitch a tell-all documentary, and she did not write a lucrative memoir detailing her trauma. She simply packed her bags, gathered every last shred of her dignity, and walked away quietly, leaving Harry to face the wreckage of his own making. The irony here is so thick you could cut it with a knife. For nearly a decade, the public was told that the palace environment drove women away, but Levin's revelations suggest that the true source of chaos was sitting right in front of us the whole time. Harry was the architect of his own heartbreak. He had a woman who genuinely loved him without condition, and he completely blew it because he lacked the maturity to be the same man in private that he pretended to be in public. And this brings us directly to the terrifying predicament currently facing Meghan Markle and Montecito. If Harry's past was defined by secret betrayals and self-sabotage, what does that say about the foundation of the Sussex marriage? When Meghan said yes to Harry's proposal, did she actually know the full unvarnished truth about why his previous relationships collapsed? Did Harry sit her down and confess that he had ruined his relationship with Chelsy through his own deceit? Or did he hand her a heavily edited, highly flattering version of himself as a misunderstood prince who had never been properly loved? That is the multi-million-dollar question currently echoing through the corridors of media outlets worldwide. Because if Meghan was sold a false narrative, then the entire ideological framework of their marriage is built on quicksand. Levin has noted with scathing precision that Harry now trails behind Meghan like a lost puppy, completely dependent on her to frame his reality and manage his public persona. But if the woman pulling the strings suddenly realizes that her project was flawed from the very beginning, the dynamic shifts entirely. People close to the situation are quietly leaking that the atmosphere inside Montecito is beyond tense. This is not just another tabloid rumor that can be dismissed with a frosty statement from a spokesperson. This is a direct challenge to the fundamental truth of Harry's character coming from a biographer who spent over a year listening to him speak about his life, his regrets, and his deepest desires. To make matters infinitely worse, the contrast between Chelsy Davy's current life and Harry's chaotic existence could not possibly be more stark. Right now, Chelsy is living a serene, wildly successful life in Mauritius, raising her children, running her thriving brand, and posting effortless photos against tropical sunsets. She has never given a single tell-all interview. She has never tried to monetize her royal connection. She represents everything Harry threw away: peace, true independence, and authentic happiness. Meanwhile, Harry is stuck in a golden cage of his own making, constantly chasing media deals, fighting endless legal battles, and appearing increasingly miserable on global stages. The public is looking at these two vastly different trajectories and drawing conclusions that are utterly lethal to the Sussex image. It exposes the fact that Harry did not leave the United Kingdom to find freedom. He left because he could no longer face the consequences of his own past mistakes. He traded a life of quiet, genuine substance for a loud, performative circus, and the world is finally waking up to the reality of that trade. The public reaction to these allegations has been nothing short of a total catastrophic meltdown for the Sussex public relations machinery. Across social media platforms, entertainment forums, and international news broadcasts, the narrative has shifted from polite skepticism to outright condemnation. Insiders from within media circles are reporting that leaked documents, hush-hush conversations, and anonymous sources are beginning to drip-feed even more uncomfortable details about Harry's wilderness years before he met Meghan. Gossip columnists and investigative reporters are digging deep into old event logs, hotel registries, and party itineraries from Harry's wilder years, trying to map out the exact timeline of his alleged indiscretions during his relationship with Chelsy Davy. Unnamed sources close to the old royal inner circle are allegedly whispering that Harry's behavior back then was an open secret among a very tight-knit group of friends, a group that was eventually systematically cut off and discarded the moment he moved to California. The sheer hypocrisy on display is what has sent the public into an absolute frenzy. For years, Harry has lectured the world from his pristine California mansion about emotional intelligence, breaking generational trauma, and holding institutions accountable for their lack of transparency. Yet, according to these damning new revelations, the very man giving these sermons was secretly engaging in the exact kind of deceptive, toxic behavior he now claims to despise. Anonymous commentary from individuals who claim to have worked closely with the Sussexes during their transition out of the royal family paints a picture of intense panic behind the scenes. According to these leaks, Meghan is furious, not necessarily because of the moral implications of affairs that happened long before she arrived, but because of how it completely destroys her carefully constructed PR strategy. Meghan's entire public profile relies on total control over information. She has spent years meticulously curating every detail of their lives, from their carefully staged holiday cards to their slickly produced documentary series. Having a respected biographer step into the spotlight and drop a massive, unvarnished piece of Harry's real history totally outside of Meghan's control is her absolute worst nightmare. Sources claim that Montecito is in a state of high alert, with emergency meetings being called to figure out how to counter a story that refuses to die down. The public reaction on the streets and online is equally brutal. Millions of viewers who once swallowed the poor Harry narrative are now publicly calling him out. Consider the sheer scale of the deception that was required to keep the public focused on his preferred storyline. When Harry and Meghan launched their high-stakes departure from the royal family, they did so under the banner of escaping a toxic, unsupportive environment that allegedly refused to protect them. They framed their move to California as a heroic flight toward freedom, a necessary sacrifice to save a young family from the history that had haunted his mother decades prior. But if the biographer who sat across from him for over a year is pointing out that Harry was already deeply compromised from within, that he was actively sabotaging his own happiness long before Meghan Markle ever set foot in Kensington Palace, then the whole rescue mission logic falls apart. It suggests that Harry did not flee an oppressive system. He fled the inevitability of his own personal accountability. He ran away from a world that knew his real history, a world that had watched his missteps in real time, and fled to a place where he could rebrand himself as an innocent victim who had simply never been properly understood. This is precisely why the atmosphere inside the Montecito estate is reported to be nearing a total breaking point. For Meghan, who operates with the cold, calculating precision of a seasoned Hollywood producer, control over the narrative is not just a preference. It is a vital business asset. Every single project launched under the Sussex banner, from podcasts to lifestyle brands, relies on the audience believing in their absolute purity of purpose. Meghan has spent years cultivating an image as the wise, grounded partner who stepped in to heal a broken prince, guiding him out of the shadows and into the light of self-actualization. But if the public begins to realize that the man she saved was actually an unfaithful, self-sabotaging partner who ruined a decade-long relationship with a woman who asked for nothing from the royal institution, Meghan's role shifts instantly. She goes from being the heroic savior of a fairy tale romance to being the latest chapter in a long, predictable pattern of a man who uses the women in his life to insulate himself from his own failures. Sources close to media insiders suggest that this exact realization is causing immense friction behind closed doors. The Whisper Network in high society California is buzzing with reports that emergency PR strategy sessions have been taking place at all hours, as their team desperately attempts to figure out how to neutralize a story that comes not from a hostile tabloid editor, but from an authoritative biographer with documented, face-to-face access. Unlike previous controversies where the Sussexes could easily point fingers at the palace press office or blame unnamed monarchy courtiers for planting negative stories, Angela Levin cannot be so easily dismissed. She is a biographer who originally wrote about Harry with genuine empathy, a writer who wanted him to succeed, and who has now reached the heartbreaking conclusion that the man she profiled has completely lost his way. You cannot easily discredit a source who gave you every possible benefit of the doubt for years before finally being forced to admit that the benefit of the doubt was entirely unearned. What makes this unraveling even more dramatic is the relentless, unforgiving contrast provided by Chelsy Davy herself. In the hyper-curated world of modern celebrity culture, where every move is calculated for maximum engagement and every personal tragedy is monetized for streaming numbers, Chelsy stands out as an almost mythic figure of absolute integrity. While Harry and Meghan continue to push out content that rehashes old grievances, complains about security details, and laments the loss of titles, Chelsy is quietly building a life of profound substance. Living between her stunning estate in Mauritius and her business hubs, raising her children away from the toxic glare of international media, and building a luxury brand with her own hands, she embodies the exact lifestyle that Harry claimed he wanted when he left the United Kingdom. But whereas Chelsy achieved true freedom through dignity, privacy, and self-reliance, Harry has achieved only a louder, more expensive version of the very Kaji he claimed he wanted to escape. The public reaction to this stark contrast has been devastating for the Sussex team. Internet forums, comment sections, and media roundtables are increasingly filled with viewers who are pointing out the glaring irony of the situation. People are openly asking how a man who could not maintain basic fidelity to a woman who genuinely loved him without condition can now stand in front of global audiences and lecture them about truth, empathy, and integrity. The audience fatigue that was already beginning to show around the Sussex brand has suddenly transformed into something far more dangerous: active ridicule. When a public figure goes from being viewed with sympathy to being viewed as a hypocritical comic figure, the damage to their brand is almost always irreversible. The high-value commercial deals that were once thrown at their feet were based on the idea that they were aspirational, inspirational figures. But aspirational figures do not carry a trail of broken promises, unaddressed personal scandals, and endless public complaints. As this second phase of the scandal continues to deepen, the pressure on their remaining corporate relationships is reaching an all-time high. Entertainment executives who originally bought into the Sussex dream on the promise of world-class, uplifting programming are now forced to reckon with the fact that their multi-million-dollar investments are attached to a brand that is bleeding credibility by the day. Leaked conversations from media boardrooms indicate that executives are growing weary of the constant crisis management required just to keep the couple's projects afloat. Every time a new product or project is slated for release, it is instantly overshadowed by another wave of personal drama, another damning revelation from a former biographer, or another public backlash regarding their endless grievances. The commercial viability of the Sussexes was built on a ticking clock, and that clock is now running down to its final seconds as the public realizes that beneath the flashy production values and high-minded rhetoric, the core product being sold is fundamentally hollow. The impending collapse of the Sussex commercial machine is no longer a distant theoretical threat. It is an active, rapidly accelerating reality that is sending shockwaves through the highest corridors of the entertainment industry. When major global platforms originally signed Prince Harry and Meghan Markle to eye-watering multi-million-dollar deals, they were not investing in television production skills or podcast expertise. They were buying exclusive access to a modern fairy tale. They paid for the pristine, high-concept narrative of a brave, progressive prince and his visionary wife who had heroically escaped an ancient, oppressive system to build an authentic life of global service. But now that Levin and a wave of former insiders have systematically exposed the rot at the foundation of that story, those massive investments have transformed into radioactive liabilities. Entertainment executives who once competed fiercely for the couple's signatures are now quietly holding high-level strategy meetings to determine how to cut their losses without getting dragged into the toxic, endless vortex of Sussex litigation and public relations warfare. The mathematical reality facing the couple inside their sprawling, heavily guarded Montecito estate is brutal and utterly unforgiving. Maintaining a hyper-luxurious lifestyle that includes round-the-clock private security teams, legal retainers across multiple continents, high-priced crisis management publicists, and a massive personal staff requires a staggering, continuous stream of capital. For years, that capital flowed freely on the promise of future content, future books, and future global initiatives. But as those original contracts expire without renewal, and as major brands quietly scrub their associations with the couple, the financial trap is beginning to spring shut. The public appetite for endless rehashes of royal grievances has completely dried up, replaced by a deep-seated cultural fatigue that makes any new Sussex release an instant target for widespread mockery and aggressive online critique. When a brand shifts from being aspirational to being a punchline, the corporate money vanishes almost overnight. What makes this financial and social unraveling so uniquely terrifying for the Sussex team is that they have systematically burned every single bridge that could have served as a safety net. In his desperate bid to establish his independence and monetize his personal story, Harry did not just distance himself from his family. He launched a scorched earth campaign against the very institution that gave him relevance in the first place. He alienated his father, deeply wounded his brother, mocked his native country's traditions, and publicly aired private family communications for commercial gain. Now, as his Hollywood ambitions stall and his commercial value plummets, he finds himself marooned on an island of his own making. He cannot turn back to the royal family, where doors have been firmly and permanently locked against him, and he cannot maintain his footing in a fickle American media landscape that has already moved on to the next shiny distraction. The social isolation surrounding the couple in California is equally severe and telling. Hollywood's true power players, the elite directors, studio heads, and A-list celebrities who initially lined up to take selfies and attend high-profile summits with the couple, have quietly pulled back into the shadows. In the cutthroat world of high-level entertainment, access is everything, but unpredictability is lethal. Industry insiders know that the Sussexes operate with a high-risk policy of recording conversations, keeping meticulous notes, and eventually turning private interactions into commercial content whenever their public brand requires a fresh infusion of drama. Nobody in elite circles wants to invite a couple into their private home or on board their yacht. If there is even a slight chance that their casual dinner-time conversation will be featured in a future memoir, a leaked interview, or a streaming documentary, the couple who promised to redefine global influence has instead become entirely isolated.